Probably our most challenging part of our trip was ahead. It was Bay of Biscay, home to some of the Atlantic Ocean's fiercest weather. Abnormally high waves occur there. Luckily we found quite nice weather windows to cross it. Waves were high at some point, but they were quite long, so it wasn't bad at all. We got also very nice company once again from dolphins. At one point there was a lot of them, the biggest pack we had seen during whole trip. After Biscay we anchored to the first shelter and again in pitch dark. We could hear close by big waves breaking and we didn't know how much closer we could go before we hit the waves, as it was dark, but it sounded like they were just next to us. Next morning, however, we discovered a nice surfing spot. At the morning we continued our journey towards Camaret-Sur-Mer, where we picked up our friend Hannu and did some provisioning.
Modis, what are you doing?
Paying for my garbage, you guys garbage.
Messut luovutti kesken matkan.
No nyt saatiin koodi.
Noniin.
Kato se aukas. Ja sit se ei mahu sitten. It's too small.
Cool! Kierrättäminen on niin kiva.
The reason why we took Hannu on board was to have a cook.
Tu Meksikosta asti palkattu. Kato.
Siellä.
Ei. Menee se.
Slowly.
Slowly. Slowly. Se on nukkumassa.
Wake him up.
This way.
Herätä perkele.
Hop. Noin se menee kiinni. Se on huikea hyvä tuoda.
Our next stop was supposed to be at Jersey Island, but due to COVID they didn't let us ashore. But to our surprise, diesel was cheap there, so we filled up the tanks and continued our journey. After Jersey, we had to anchor as current was so strong that it just didn't make sense to continue, so we spent one night in Anchorage.
Noniin. Valmiina veteen.
Valmiina veteen. Ootko valmis veteen? Tarvitset vakaa. On vähän tuuppaa. Onko se kylmää?
Ei siitä tulla tänne sisälle vielä.
Ei helvetti. En mä halua sinne tulla.
Jää työdä se.
Hei!
You can do it. No?
Sinne syödä sitä.
Our next stop was Deauville. This was definitely one of our top 3 places we visited during our trip.
Kesämies.
Vähän liian viileä.
Onko? Ei oo.
We had to leave really early not to miss the high tide. We slept a bit too long and made it right on the limit. Water had already gone down quite a bit, and at lowest there was just around 30 centimeters under our keel. On the way towards Belgium, we dropped Hannu off at Calais in France to avoid additional border crossing during COVID. Then we continued, just the 2 of us. Next night we spent in Ostende, ate and did our provisioning again. From there we headed towards Amsterdam. The weather was not always perfect. We experienced rain and even thunder and lightnings. We passed the world's second busiest harbour, Rotterdam, at night. The amount of traffic kept at least me well awake during my night shift. To reach Amsterdam, we had to go through man-made North Sea Canal that was built between 1865 and 1876 to enable vessels to reach Port of Amsterdam. Amsterdam is known to be one of the most bicycle-friendly cities in the world, with several bike storages. Every household has on average 2 bikes, and according to estimates, there are more bikes than residents. However, thefts of bikes is also widespread. Each year between 50 to 80,000 bikes are stolen. We continued next day along the canal back to open sea. It was quite cool route with opening bridges and canal going over the road. 1.4 tide, so we're going like 7.5, 8 knots of speed with one motor. That's pretty good. Water is super flat. The sun is shining. Not a bad morning.
Our next stop was Cuxhaven, where we spent night and filled up the tanks again. Ture joined us here also, and next morning we headed to Kiel Canal. The Kiel Canal is a 98-kilometer long freshwater canal. The canal was finished in 1895, but later widened and links the North Sea to the Baltic Sea. An average of 250 nautical miles is saved by using the Kiel Canal instead of going around Denmark. This not only saves time, but also avoids stormy seas. Usually Kiel Canal costs some tens of euros for our boat, but at the time it was free. The Kiel Canal is the world's most used artificial waterway, with an annual average of 32,000 ships transporting approximately 100 million tons of goods. After Kiel Canal, Toner jumped off and went back home. Three of us continued straight towards Visby, where Ture flew back to Finland. We stayed in Visby half a day and decided to continue same day, as there was some bad weather forecasts coming up if we would have stayed longer. I think the route from Visby to Tallinn was actually the toughest one, as it was just two of us and we were really tired as we hadn't got proper sleep. In Tallinn we did a small day trip with my brother's family.
Some are starving in Africa, but we are picking puppies.
Both life.
We got literally quite a shitty wake up at the morning. We heard some noise on the deck and got up. There was a crowd that had got into the aft closure. When I went out, it scared the shit out of him, and he flew all around the place trying to find the opening, and while doing that, he was shitting everywhere like having a diarrhea. Luckily he found his way out, but it was quite a mess.
Next day we crossed the Gulf of Finland and ended our trip in our home harbour. It didn't end exactly as planned, as one of the slips between boats failed as we leaned our boat to it while mooring. The wood seemed to be quite rotten and in bad condition. They changed it to a new one later during the summer, and we also heard some rumors that they might do a bigger retrofit to the marina during summer 22. But despite this small accident, we were satisfied and happy to be back home.